Thanks very much, Senator, for your leadership, for your steadfast support of good transportation policy, and for, with your Senate colleagues, helping to deliver this bipartisan infrastructure law that the President signed on Monday. And we're thankful as well to Senator Cardin, to so many members of your House delegation, and to the local and state elected leaders who are here as well. Mayor Scott, great to be with you again. It's a little chillier, as you said, than I saw you last time. The job of mayor, I continue to agree, is the most important and difficult and demanding in government. It's only gotten more so since I left my time as mayor, although I will say it would have been nice when I was mayor to have this big of an infrastructure fund coming my way. So we're hoping your job just got a little bit easier thanks to this landmark law. So glad to be with Secretary Slater, to be with the Director of Maryland Transit Authority here, and so many others who made these victories possible and who are actually going to be on the front lines of getting results now that we've got the funding that we've been working on for so long. I wish everybody here could have been there on the South Lawn of the White House on Monday when the President signed that law, because you saw something that a lot of people thought was impossible today, especially in today's Washington, to see a number of Republicans joining Democrats and a president to make something historic happen, something that is positive and concrete for the entire country. And of course, the week that began with that ended on Friday with the passage in the House of the Build Back Better Act, which we are excited to see go to the Senate and help lower costs for American families on everything from insulin to child care. These two centerpieces of the president's agenda are going to make a tremendous difference in everyday life. And everyday life, I believe, ought to be the foundation of all politics and policy. And that's why this project we're celebrating here matters so much. The mayor described his experience as a student with a 2+ hour commute just to get across his own community to where he needed to be. For it to take longer for someone who lives here in Baltimore to get to work or school than it takes to get here from Capitol Hill if you do have a car shows you what needs to change, and it's part of what is going to change thanks to this very important project. I got to tell you, this was a very competitive process. There were about $10 billion of requests for $1 billion dollars of funding in this program. So only the most compelling projects were able to make the cut and get funded. And this was one of them for so many reasons. Connecting people to opportunity, connecting people to jobs, connecting people to service, connecting people to each other, connecting people to education. And yes, connecting people who had been sometimes disconnected in the past. And it is important to take note of the history here. In the 60s and 70s, urban planners wanted to run a highway right through downtown Baltimore, removing countless homes, businesses, churches. And the people of Baltimore got together and assembled what they called a movement against destruction, which successfully compelled planners to take a different course. But it was too late to do something about that highway to nowhere, that first phase, which is less than a mile and a half long, and yet just putting in that small stretch of highway destroyed nearly 1,000 homes and displaced about 1,500 residents, mostly black residents in West Baltimore. The point of transportation is to connect people, not to disconnect people. And now we have an opportunity to do something about that, in no small part thanks to the leadership of Senate leaders like Senators Van Hollen and Cardin, who've spoken about this issue, and thanks to the very real dollars that we have to apply toward making sure people are connected and not disconnected. The East-West Priority Corridor is an ambitious vision to connect the city, to create jobs, and to help more people in Baltimore access opportunity. So that's why we're proud to support this with $22 million in funding from the RAISE program that'll create 10 miles of dedicated bus lanes, improve accessibility for people with disabilities, and enhance safety for everybody who walks and who bikes. This is a great example of how we can support economic growth. There are, by our estimate, about 180,000 jobs along this corridor. Connections to the Social Security Administration, as was mentioned, the downtown business district, Johns Hopkins, Bayview Hospital. And this means shorter commutes, less congestion, fewer carbon emissions, as well as more jobs, including for communities that depend on public transit the most, which are disproportionately likely to be communities of color. More crosswalks and curb ramps and bike lanes mean that it'll be easier and safer to get around. And faster citywide connections also support vital economic engines like that Port of Baltimore that the president visited, that I had a chance to visit earlier this year, which is, of course, so important for supporting our supply chains as they recover from this pandemic. It's even helping to repurpose that infamous highway to nowhere by adding new bike lanes and bike facilities. So this is one of 90 projects across 47 states, D.C. and Guam, that are going to make a difference on everything from freight connectors in South Dakota to what we're celebrating right here in Baltimore. And thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law, we're going to have a whole lot more where this came from. And I can tell you that my department, just like the local leaders who are here and the state leaders who are here, feel the responsibility and the pressure to make very good use of those very large sums of taxpayer dollars, because it's not about the numbers on a page. It is about the difference that it makes in everyday life, and we are proud to support that work right here in Baltimore. So thank you again to everybody who got us to this point, and happy to take a few questions that I think Carrie will quarterback over there.
I think, Paul, the key here is that this is not just about Baltimore City DOT. This is about partnership with MTA and MDOT, right? And we know the biggest issue that we have when you're trying to travel, people travel by bus. You heard it. 17,000 people like that live in this area on this corridor. It's about getting people to where they need to go faster and more efficiently. It's about doing that in a way that understands that we don't have to live in a city anymore where we're only worried about those who drive, because so many people that work in the businesses that provide the goods and services that you and I depend on, that work in our hospitals, that work in our other medical facilities, they catch the bus, and they should be able to get to work in a quick and efficient way too.
Absolutely. Look, we've been facing the consequences of underinvestment in transit for years, even for decades, even though we have learned through experience that transit benefits everybody. And now we have an appreciation that wasn't there when subways were first built, for example, about the climate benefits that add even more of a compelling rationale to make the kinds of investments we're making. It's first of all vitally important that you not have to own a car. Or that if you do own a car, you don't have to drive it absolutely everywhere to get to where you need to be. But also, if you are driving a car, you're still better off if there's more transit because there's less congestion on the roads. So there's so many reasons why this makes sense and why we're proud to have the biggest investment we've ever made in public transit at a federal level as part of this package. And we're seeing right here the difference that it makes in everyday life for people in Baltimore trying to get to where they need to be. That's fine. Anytime they call me a mayor, I take it as a compliment because mayors are on the front lines here. Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of measures about both accountability and timing to make sure that the project is delivered well. And I see heads nodding that our project partners and project sponsors are very conscious of that. It's not like the 2009 stimulus where we're trying to just instantly pump as much economic juice into the economy as possible. It's more about a long-term vision, but still, we want to make sure that people see those results. We have a high degree of confidence and trust in our state and local partners, but we also have that responsibility to be watching and carefully making sure that those taxpayer dollars are well spent.
And last question, we're going to go to Hillary with DP.
I'll take it. Yeah, we're very excited to begin work on the EV charging network that the president envisions, 500,000 chargers across the country, to make sure that in big, wide open spaces out west that you know that you can get a charge where you need one on a long trip, and in urban areas that are underserved, where people don't live in detached houses where you can just plug the car into your wall of your garage, that they have equitable access to. in fact, if you think about it, the two kinds of drivers who stand to benefit the most from electric vehicles are rural drivers who drive those long distances and burn a lot of gas, and lower income drivers in urban areas who would benefit the most from those fuel savings. But there's really two things we need to do in order to connect them to that opportunity. Part of it's the charging station. So we're working, as I speak, with Secretary Granholm and her team to quickly connect up the Department of Energy and the DOT on the tactical plan for moving forward. And then what's in the second part, the Build Back Better legislation, which is to give Americans thousands of dollars in discounts, in effect, through tax incentives, so that it's easier to afford in the first place. And the more that happens, the more that also stimulates an American-made EV industry, which makes the overall cost of those vehicles get lower, we think, each passing year.